Evelyn Marlowe moved through the halls of Harrington & Cole the way sunlight moves across a room just before dusk. Present, necessary, yet so easy to overlook if one wasn't paying attention. She carried blueprints tucked under her arm, a pencil balanced in her hair, and an air of quiet competence that never asked for recognition. In a company where ambition roared like fire, Evelyn was a steady candle flame. Constant, reliable, easily ignored. She had not always been invisible. Life had simply taught her the usefulness of silence. When she joined the firm 3 years earlier, she thought her work would speak for her. She thought precision, creativity, and diligence would be enough. And though her designs were clean, intuitive, and thoughtful, though her project revisions had saved the firm millions in unnecessary material costs, her name rarely appeared on credit sheets. Someone else always took the final presentation. Someone louder. Someone whose confidence filled the room more aggressively than her quiet talent ever could. But Evelyn observed. She listened. She learned. And sometimes, when she lifted her gaze from her drafting table, she'd catch him watching her. Alexander Harrington. The name carried weight in the industry. Son of a legacy family, a prodigy in business strategy, a man who built and rebuilt companies with ruthless brilliance. To most, he was a winter storm wrapped in a tailored suit, sharp, cold, commanding. The kind of man who could silence a boardroom simply by looking up from his laptop. His presence was the steel spine of Harrington & Cole, and he was everything Evelyn was not. He moved through the world with a kind of self-assured discipline that came from knowing no one could afford to underestimate him. He spoke rarely, and when he did, there was no room for wasted breath. His suits were always a deep gray or black, his hair kept in a precise style that never seemed to shift, and his eyes, those dark, unreadable eyes, held the kind of depth she never dared to look into for too long. They spoke sometimes, yes. Brief exchanges, professional, efficient. But now and then, when the office was quiet and she was hunched over a late project, she would sense him before she heard him. He would pause beside her desk, not long enough to be noticeable to anyone else, but long enough for her breath to catch. He would ask about the model she was working on, or comment, without emotion, on the choice of materials she had selected. And then there was the pause, the heartbeat-long stillness before he walked away. It was nothing. She knew it was nothing. He was the CEO. He monitored everything and everyone. She was merely another piece of the machine he oversaw. Still, sometimes she felt his gaze like warmth along her skin. Not burning, not claiming, simply aware, like she existed in a part of his mind where very few things were allowed to stay. She told herself it was imagination, wishful projection, a story her lonely heart was trying to write into the blank spaces of her life, because men like Alexander Harrington did not look at women like Evelyn Marlowe. Not really. And yet, one quiet morning, as she sat reviewing the updated design schedule, she felt eyes on her. She looked up. He was there, across the glass conference room, hands in his pockets, speaking to no one, watching her. Their eyes met, just for a breath. Something flickered. Recognition, memory, history she did not know existed. Then he looked away. And Evelyn told herself again that it meant nothing, even as her heart whispered that it meant everything. The invitation arrived on a quiet morning when the office lights were still warming and most desks sat empty. Evelyn took her seat with the same calm routine she always carried: coffee papers. New tasks a day like any other, but something new. Waited on her desk, a white envelope, thick, heavy, expensive, in a way that whispered importance. Her name written in elegant black script. Evelyn Marlowe. She stared at it for a long moment, her breath slow, careful as if touching it too quickly might break whatever it contained. She opened it. Inside was an invitation to the annual Harrington & Cole Charity Gala, the event of the year, the one. Only partners, Directors and high-ranking executives attended a place where deals were formed. Reputations measured. Worlds shifted. She was a junior architect. No one in her position was invited before she could make sense of it. A voice spoke behind her. You will attend. She turned. Alexander Harrington stood there, not close but present, as if the air around him pulled all focus. His gaze was calm, steady, unreadable as always. I think this was sent to me by mistake, she said softly. No mistake? He answered. His tone gave no room for doubt, no explanation either. Her heart gave a small, unsteady movement. Why me? Why now? Before she could ask, he was already walking away. His steps measured, controlled, as if emotions were things meant to be folded and kept. Behind locked doors, the office began to fill voices. Footsteps, screens glowing to life, and the invitation still lay on her desk. A quiet promise or a quiet threat. She could not tell which. At lunch, Leia leaned across the table, eyes bright with curiosity. No one gets invited to that gala unless someone important wants them there. Someone very important. Her voice lowered with meaning. Evelyn tried to laugh it off. He barely knows. Malaya shook her head. Oh, he knows you men like him. Always know what they want, they just hide the wanting. The word stayed with Evelyn long after she returned to work. That afternoon, she passed Alexander in the hallway, just a simple crossing of paths. But the moment stretched. His eyes met hers, warm for the smallest flicker, gone in the next breath as if warmth itself was something he had to control. She felt it, the shift unspoken but undeniable. Something had begun, or perhaps something long silent had been brought to the surface, when she left the building that evening. The sky was dusky gold, city lights flickering awake, cars moving slow in the early night. She paused outside the doors, the invitation in her hand. The gala was tomorrow. A world she did not belong to, but had been summoned into. Nonetheless, the city breeze brushed against her, cool against her skin, and somewhere deep within her heart, a quiet truth rose. This was not an accident. Someone had chosen her, and that someone was Alexander Harrington. The night of the gala arrived like a tide she could not stop. Evelyn stood before her small mirror, adjusting the dark gown that flowed over her like water. Not flashy, not loud, simply elegant in a way that belonged to her alone. Her hands shook just once. Then she breathed slow and steady, like she was stepping into a new life outside the city, shimmered with light. Cars lined up in front of the glass hotel where the gala was held. Camera flashes caught jeweled gowns and sharp suits. Music drifted from behind tall doors. A world built for power, wealth, and those born to stand in it. Evelyn stepped inside and the world shifted. People moved like constellations around her. Voices, low glasses raised names known across boardrooms and magazine covers. She felt the old instinct to disappear, to fold inwards, to blend into the corners where no one looked. But tonight she had been invited, called summoned, and the person who summoned her stood across the room. Alexander Harrington in a black suit that seemed carved to fit only him, still composed, watching the room, the way a king watches a kingdom he has built. But when his eyes found her, the world silenced. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. There was only the space between them. He crossed the room slowly, as if he had all the time in the world, and always. Would people whispered, heads turned. Yet no one stepped close. No one interrupted the room. Somehow parted for him. He stopped before her. Not too close, but close enough that warmth rose between them. You came, just 2 words, yet they felt like hands, reaching into her chest to touch something tender and hidden. She answered with a small nod, unsure if her voice would hold if she tried to use it. May I show you something? His tone was softer than she had ever heard. Not the cold command of boardrooms, but something careful, almost gentle. She followed him through the crowd, past chandeliers and soft music, to the grand ballroom, where couples moved in slow circles across polished floors. The music shifted, a slow waltz, soft strings, a quiet invitation. Alexander turned to her and offered his hand. Not a demand, a question. Evelyn hesitated, her heart loud against her ribs. Then she placed her hand in his. His touch was warm, steady, certain as they stepped into the dance. His hand rested at the small of her back, her other hand in his. Every movement smooth and measured, but beneath the grace there was tension. A storm held still. He looked down at her, not like a CEO, not like a distant figure carved from stone, but like a man who had been waiting. For this moment, for a very long time, she felt it a truth. Without words, the music drifted, time stretched, and in that hush between heartbeats, she knew this was not the beginning. This was the moment. The beginning revealed itself. Something had existed. Long before tonight, quiet, buried, protected, and it was no longer hiding now. The dance ended, but the connection between them did not fall away. It lingered like heat in the air. Like the echo of a touch still resting on the skin, Alexander guided her gently toward the terrace, away from music, away from eyes, away from the world. Night outside was cool, the sky wide above them in silver and black, the city glowing far below like 1,000 quiet secrets. They stood together in the hush of it, not speaking, not needing to. Evelyn felt her heartbeat in her throat, loud, alive almost, frightening. She did not belong in this world yet. In this moment, she belonged nowhere else. Alexander looked at her, not with the distant gaze she had seen in conference rooms, not with the cold control that built empires, but with something unguarded, raw, aching, with something unspoken. "You are not invisible." His voice low, steady, as if he had waited a very long time to say the words. Evelyn froze, her breath catching, because she had never told anyone that she felt invisible, never admitted the quiet ache of being unnoticed, unremarkable, unclaimed by the world. "How could he know I see you?" he said, and there was no doubt in him, no hesitation. Only truth. Something broke open in her chest, something soft and long hidden. She stepped closer, not thinking, not planning. Simply drawn, her hand rose to his face, hesitant, uncertain. But he did not move away. His eyes closed the moment she touched him, as if the world itself finally exhaled. She lifted her face and kissed him. Not a grand kiss, not wild, not desperate, but a kiss born from years of silence, a kiss that whispered, "I have felt this without words, and I did not know how to speak." Alexander stilled for one breath, two, as if holding back the force of something immense. Then his hand rose to her jaw, gentle, steady, reverent, and he kissed her back. The world fell away. Then music faded, voices blurred. Time surrendered. There was only the warmth of his mouth, the quiet sigh against her lips, the truth that existed before either of them dared to see it. But the moment shattered, a burst of footsteps urgent echoing through the terrace doorways. Security rushed into the night air, breathless tenses. "You need to come now. There is a breach." Alexander pulled back slowly, his breath uneven, his eyes full of something, fierce and unspoken. Evelyn watched him, her heart still pressed against the shape of his. He looked at her, the world closing in around them, chaos rising like storm wind, but his voice remained soft when he spoke. "Remember this?" Then he turned, moving toward the crisis, the world reclaiming him, and Evelyn stood alone in the night, lips still trembling from the kiss, knowing nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The next morning arrived with a weight she was not prepared for. Evelyn sat at her desk as the office lights buzzed quietly overhead. The same computer, the same drafting table, the same work, waiting in neat stacks. But something inside her had changed, and every breath she took reminded her of that terrace of his hands, of the way. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world. She expected him to appear, to speak, to acknowledge the moment they had shared. But hours passed and Alexander did not come. Meetings continued, calls were made. Deadlines moved forward. The world acted as if nothing had happened. Evelyn began to wonder if she had imagined it. The warmth, the closeness, the truth she had felt in his touch. Had she misread everything? Had she been foolish, naive? Near noon, she saw him across the corridor outside the glass conference room. He stood with the legal team discussing something briskly, controlled a figure carved from stone again. He did not look at her. Not once. Something inside her went still, not broken, but waiting. Later, she found herself alone in the break room, hands around a mug of tea that had already gone cold. Trying to make sense of the silence, Nadia entered her co-worker, sharp-eyed, perceptive. Never missing the quiet things others overlooked. "You are different today," she said gently. Evelyn said nothing. She did not know what to say. The truth felt too fragile to touch. Nadia studied her, then lowered her voice. "I heard something happened at the gala. People are talking something about security rushing in and Mr. Harrington leaving suddenly. No one knows why." Evelyn looked down at her hands, the memory of the kiss pulsing through her like a quiet flame hidden but alive. That evening she stayed late, working. The office emptied lights dimmed the world outside, fading into night. She gathered, her things slowly moving toward the elevator. The doors opened. Alexander stood inside. They both froze. He was still dressed in the same elegant control. But there was something beneath it. Something sharp unsettled, a storm held behind his eyes. They stepped inside together. Silence filling the space. The doors closed. The elevator moved. Her pulse beat in her throat. He finally spoke, his voice low, quiet, weighted. "Last night was not a mistake." Her breath shook. "Then why are you avoiding me?" The elevator continued. Its descent slow, too slow. His jaw tightened as if the words were difficult to release. "Because I cannot afford to lose control. Not now. Not with you." The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened, but neither of them stepped out. His eyes met, hers unshielded for the first time. "I have wanted you for longer than you know." Her heart felt too full, too fragile. "Then let yourself want me," she whispered. His breath caught his hand, lifted as if he would touch her again. But his phone rang. Sharp, demanding them. Spell broke. He looked at the caller ID, his expression shifting, closing. "I have to go." Hay stepped out into the lobby, the world claiming him again. Evelyn remained in the elevator, her heart trembling, her hands shaking, knowing only one thing with absolute clarity. He wanted her truly, deeply, but something was holding him back. Something powerful. Something hidden. Something that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with the past. He refused to speak of. Days passed, but the memory of the elevator hung between them like a held breath. Evelyn worked quietly at her desk, her hands steady, her eyes focused. Yet her heart was not the same. She noticed things she had never allowed herself to see before. The way Alexander avoided looking directly at her during meetings. How his voice softened when he said her name. How silence followed him like a shadow he never escaped. The office whispered rumors moving through corridors like wind under doors. No one knew details, only that something had shifted. In the air around the CEO, it was Laya, who gave words to the quiet storm. "He is scared," she said simply. "Men like him do not fear work, or loss, or competition. They fear feeling, because once they feel, they cannot undo." Evelyn did not answer, but her heart knew the truth in those words. Late one evening, long after the rest of the staff had left, she found herself walking toward the top floor. The floor no one visited unless requested. His door was half open, light spilling softly into the dark hallway. Not harsh office light, but warm light, the kind found in homes and quiet places where walls are allowed to breathe. She hesitated, but something deeper than caution guided her step. Alexander was there, standing beside the wide windows, the city beneath. Him in glittering silence, one hand holding a thick folder. But he was not reading it. His posture was still unmoving, as if the world outside was a memory instead of a view. She spoke his name soft, careful not to startle the moment. He turned, not sharply, not guarded but slowly, as if he had known she was there even before she entered evilly. Her name sounded different on his tongue, not professional, not distant, but weighted with something lived and carried. She stepped closer, only one step, but it felt like crossing a bridge she had built in her heart for years. "You said you wanted me for a long time." She said, her voice steady. Though her pulse ran wild, but wanting is not the same as choosing, his jaw tightened. His eyes flickered with something shadowed. Pain, memory, fear, love. "I cannot let you be pulled into my past." His voice was low, almost rough, as if each word cost him something. "There are things you do not know about me, and I would rather lose you than harm you." Harm, the word echoed through her. Sharp, unwelcome, false. She shook her head. "You are not someone who harms you. Protect even when no one sees it." His eyes closed briefly, like her words struck a part of him that had never healed. "There are things I have had to do." He said things that built this company. Things that carved me into this man. Choices that left blood on my hands. Evelyn reached out. Slow, gentle. Her fingertips brushing his sleeve. Not to erase his past, but to say, "I see you fully." His breath trembled. "You do not deserve the weight of what I carry." He whispered, "Maybe not." She answered, "But I choose it. I choose you." Silence held the room, not empty, but full of everything they had never dared say. Then a sharp knock cut through the stillness. The door opened before either of them. Spokilayas, Alexander's closest advisor, stepped in, his expression grave. "We have a problem. Someone is trying to sabotage the Carver project, and they know where to strike." Alexander's entire demeanor shifted, the storm returning to his spine. But not the cold one. This one was protective, dangerous, alive. He looked at Evelyn. His voice soft but unbreakable. "You stay with me now. Not a request, not a command. A promise." And in his eyes she saw it. Whatever was coming, he was willing to face it only if she was beside him. The office felt different the next morning. Tension moving through the halls like electricity waiting to strike. No one spoke of the Carver project problem, but everyone felt it. A quiet awareness that something important was at risk. Evelyn worked beside Alexander, now not hidden away in the lower floors, but in the heart of the building at his side, where strategy and power took shape. Some stared, some whispered, some understood, but none dared to ask. Alexander moved with silent focus, every step, precise, every gesture controlled, yet beneath that calm, something pulsed like a restrained storm. The Carver project was more than a development, more than architecture, more than money. It was a community, a place meant to give children and families safety and hope. A place that reflected something deeply personal in him, and someone wanted to destroy it. Elias entered with a file, his eyes serious. "There is a meeting request from the investor who pulled out last month. Vincent Hale." The air tightened. Eveline remembered the name, a man with influence, connections, and a reputation for smiling. While his enemies drowned, Alexander's voice was quiet, where Elias answered, "He wants to meet at the old Harrington estate." Evelyn felt something inside her shift. She had seen a single photograph once in a company archive. A large home made of stone, beautiful yet cold, surrounded by iron gates and deep woods. A place that looked like it remembered old Payne Alexander's. Gaze flickered the smallest sign of something, wounded, something buried. Evelyn stepped closer, her voice soft. "You do not have to go alone." His eyes met hers, holding more truth than words ever had. "I will not leave you behind," he said. The drive to the estate was silent, the car rolling through long roads lined with bare trees, branches reaching like hands toward a gray sky. The iron gates opened slowly, as if reluctant to let them in. The house stood tall and severe, every window dark, every stone heavy with memories that did not rest. Evelyn felt it. The moment they stepped inside, a weight in the air, like echoes of raised voices and broken promises, still lived in the walls. Alexander walked through the hall without hesitation, but his shoulders were not as straight as they usually were. Something in this place pulled at him, opened old scars. Vincent Hale waited in the grand room, smiling in a way that never reached his eyes. "So the ghost returns," Vincent said, looking around the room with practiced amusement. "And he brings company," Evelyn felt. Alexander's hand found hers, not for possession, but grounding, as if her presence steadied him. Vincent approached slowly. "You built an empire out of this house of ashes. But every empire has a foundation, and every foundation cracks." His smile sharpened. "I know what you hide, Harrington." The room went still. The air cold, the past suddenly close enough to breathe. Alexander did not flinch, his voice quiet, strong, steady. "Then say it." Vincent leaned close, his whisper a blade. "Tell her how you really got the money to start your company. Tell her who you had to bury to become the man she is falling in love with." The world seemed to tilt. Evelyn felt Alexander's grip tighten, not in fear but in pain. Vincent stepped back, hands spread in mock sympathy. "You see, even the powerful have ghosts." Evelyn looked at Alexander, her voice trembling, not with doubt but with love that refused to break. "You do not have to explain it now, but you do not face it alone." And in his eyes, something shattered, not between them, but within him, a wall he had held for years, falling at last. The drive back from the estate was silent. Not the silence of distance, but the silence of two hearts standing at a doorway. Neither had crossed before. Evelyn sat beside Alexander, hands resting in her lap, yet every part of her was aware of him. The tension in his shoulders, the way his breath held and released too slowly. The storm building behind his eyes. She wanted to reach for him, but she did not. Not yet. He was standing on the edge of something he had never allowed himself to face, and she knew he had to invite her in. When they reached the tower, the city lights flickered like stars trapped in glass. The office was nearly empty, the world dim and quiet. Alexander walked ahead, not quickly, but like each step carried weight. Memories, shadows, choices that had shaped him. Evelyn followed. He stopped inside his office, not behind his desk, but at the window. His reflection in the night glass looked like a man made of strength and grief. In equal measure, he spoke without turning his voice low and raw. "My father was not a good man." Evelyn said nothing. She let the words build themselves. He controlled everything. Money, perception, me, my mother. The silence that followed was not a pause, it was history breathing. He heard her again and again, and I could do nothing. I was young. I was powerless, watching her fade. But his voice shook. Then a fracture, a memory that still bled. My mother left money in a hidden account. Money she saved in secret. Money she meant to run with. But she died before she could. Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling the ache like it belonged to both of them. "When I found the account, I used it to start the first branch of the company." He continued, not stealing, not greed, but using her last act of hope to build something new. Vincent twisted it, lied, made it sound like I chose power over her life. He wanted to ruin me then, and he wants to ruin me now. Evelyn stepped forward, her footsteps soft, steady, a choice, not hesitation. She reached him at the window, her hand lifting to rest on his back, not to claim, not to comfort out of pity, but to say, "I am here." Alexander breathed out slowly, as if the air had been held inside him for years. "Everything I am began with her," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I swore I would never be like him, never use power to break, only to build." "You kept that vow," Evelyn answered, "and that is why I am not afraid." He finally turned, and the look in his eyes was unguarded, unmasked, honest in a way that few ever witnessed. "You should be. I am a man built from loss, from pressure, from the need to never be powerless again." She shook her head. You are a man who learned how to survive, and then chose to protect others with what you built. His breath trembled just once, evilly, lifted her hand, her fingers brushing his cheek. Gentle, reverent, like touching something sacred. You think your past makes you unworthy, but it is the reason you know how to love. Love, the word hung between them. Heavy, unstoppable. Leaned forward. Foreheads, meeting breath. Joined the world. Holding still. I have loved you longer than I know how to admit, he whispered. And I do not know how to stop. You do not need to stop. She answered, her voice steady now. You only need to let yourself stay. His hands rose, one to her waist, one to her jaw. Slow, certain, as if she was something fragile that deserved every careful touch. They stood there like that. Hearts pressed close, pain and tenderness woven into something new. But the moment did not end in quiet. A sharp buzz from his phone cut through the stillness, one message urgent from Elias. We have been hacked. Carver project files stolen and Evelyn's name is being used. Alexander's entire body went still. Someone was framing her. The storm had finally broken, and now they would face it together. The news spread through the building, fast screens flickering with alerts, security moving through hallways with urgency, voices hushed and sharp. Someone had stolen restricted documents from the Carver project and left a digital trail leading straight to Evelyn. She sat beside Alexander in the command room, the screens glowing with lines of code and access logs, her hands steady, her breathing slow, but something deep inside her felt. Cordelia spoke. Quietly, the breach happened last night at 2:30. The system was accessed from Evelyn's employee account. The silence that followed was heavy. Evelyn did not look away. I was with you all night, you know. I did not do this. Alexander did not hesitate. I know, no. Doubt, no pause. No distance. Those two words grounded her, anchored her even as the storm built around them. Someone wants to break more than this project, Elias said. Someone wants to break both of you. Alexander looked at the screen. His eyes narrowed, not in fear, but in calculation. A predator. Waking. Vincent. The name did not have to be spoken aloud. It was clear, obvious, cold as a blade. But then another voice entered the door. Soft, careful, yet filled with tension. It was Nadia. There is something you both need to see. She placed a photograph on the table. Old edges worn. It was a picture of the Carver neighborhood from years ago, before redevelopment, before planning, before funding, and in the corner, small, almost hidden, a younger Evelyn standing beside. Her mother, Alexander, and Elias both froze. Evelyn stared at the image, her breath catching. I did not know this existed, she whispered. I barely remember that day. I was so young. Nadia nodded, her voice gentle. But your mother fought to keep that community alive. She was part of the original neighborhood council. She led protests. She was respected, feared by the wrong people. Evelyn felt the room tilt her past. Alexander's past, the project, the thread all connected. Vincent did not just want to destroy the project. He wanted to erase everything Evelyn's mother had protected, and everything Alexander built to honor his own mother's legacy. This was not business rivalry. This was personal. War. Alexander stepped toward Evelyn, his voice low, even dangerous in its calm. They are trying to rewrite our history, to make us doubt who we are, to turn us against each other. He lifted her chin, his touch steady, sure. But they made one mistake. Evelyn looked up into his eyes, the storm in her settling into something stronger, something unbreakable. What mistake? They thought we would break. The room held its breath. Alexander continued. We will finish the Carver project. We will protect your mother's legacy and mine together. For the first time, Evelyn did not feel invisible. She felt necessary, chosen, claimed not by ownership, but by purpose. Elias returned with new information, a location, a time, a final move from Vincent tonight. At the riverfront construction site, no crowd, no witnesses. Only truth. Alexander turned to Evelyn. his hand finding hers not to lead, not to shield, but to stand beside. This ends now, and Evelyn, for the first time in her life, did not feel fear, she felt. Ready, night fell over the city heavy, and waiting. The riverfront construction site stood silent, steel beams rising into the dark, unfinished like a promise someone had tried to break. Evelyn and Alexander arrived together. No fear, no hesitation. Only, purpose only, truth. Vincent was already there, standing near the unfinished foundation, the wind pulling at his coat, a smile that was not a smile on his face. "So you came?" he said in a quiet voice that carried too far. Alexander stepped forward. Not as a CEO, not as a king of boardrooms, but as a man who had decided to stop running from the past. "This ends tonight," Vincent laughed, a soft, cruel sound. "You think love will save you. You think she will stay when she learns everything." Evelyn stepped beside, Alexander, a calm fire in her eyes. "I already know who he is, and I am not leaving." Vincent studied her, then shook his head slowly. "No, you do not know everything." He pulled out a folded document worn like someone had held it too many times. "This is the file you never saw, the one he hid, the one that explains why your name is tied to this project." Evelyn took it, her hand steady. She unfolded the paper and her breath caught. Her mother, her handwriting, her signature. Her mother had worked with Alexander's mother. They had planned the community center together. They had fought for it together until both of their lives fell apart. Vincent spoke again. "Your mother's dream began this project, and who paid for the hospital bills that kept your sister alive? All these years you think the state did." Evelyn looked up, her eyes trembling with something vast, real, shattering. "Alexander did long before he ever touched your hand. Long before he believed he deserved it. Long before he thought you would ever. Look at him. He did not do it to be seen. He did not do it to be thanked. He did it because he loved you." Evelyn turned to Alexander, the world quiet around them. "You knew me long before I knew you." His voice broke like something inside him, finally opening. "Saw you once at the clinic. You were holding your sister's hand. You smiled at her. Like love was something simple, pure, free. I had forgotten. Love could be like that. You reminded me." Evelyn stepped closer, her heart full past breaking. "Why did you never? Tell me." "Because I was afraid that if you knew how long I had loved you, you would run." Evelyn reached for him, her hands on his face, her voice steady, unshaken. "I am here, I am not running. I choose you not because you are perfect, not because you are powerful, but because you are a man who loves quietly and deeply, and without needing the world to applaud." The wind stilled. The night held its breath. Vincent watched them, anger shifting to disbelief, then to something hollow. Small, defeated, he turned away, his fight gone. The war ended. Not by force, but by truth. The sight lights flickered. The river moved slow. The world began again. Alexander held Evelyn in his arms. Not careful, not distant, but real, present, unafraid. "You changed my life," he whispered. Not the words of a man who conquered, but the words of a man who finally came home. Evelyn smiled soft, certain, her forehead resting against his. "You saw me when the world did not, and now I see you." The night broke into morning, the first light touching steel, beams turning them gold. A new beginning rising hand in hand. They walked forward, building not just a project, not just a legacy, but a life chosen together forever.